On this episode of the Escalation Podcast, I'm joined by a very special guest. Someone who I've had the pleasure and privilege of calling my boss and who has shaped my career in lasting and meaningful ways. Simon Welch, an accomplished lawyer, a true leader with a global career across compliance, law, and governance. Simon has worked across private banking, asset management, and investment banking, holding senior roles within major institutions. Most recently, he served as Global Head of Legal Sustainability at Credit Suisse AG, where he played a key role in shaping the bank's ESG legal strategy. Before that, Simon led the Credit Suisse General Counsel Legal and Compliance Business Development Centers, overseeing global sites in Poland, which is where we met, India, and the US. He managed a team of over 300 legal and compliance professionals, providing coverage to more than 18,000 employees across those regions. This episode is a deep dive into leadership at scale and what it really takes to succeed in this industry and to navigate high-impact decisions inside a global financial institution. Plus, it contains a healthy dose of reminiscence. Today's guest, Simon Welch, has had a tremendous impact on my career. Simon, welcome to Escalation. Let's dive straight into it. I wanted to know at what stage in your life you gained that clarity in your head that law is my next degree.
So I think the starting point was around about, say, 17 or so. But I was doing a lot of public speaking. And so therefore, that was the point where I actually had a few people say, have you ever thought about being a barrister? And at that stage, it was, okay, I'm coming from quite a rough council estate in the middle of a sort of an overflow town in Cheshire. So it was something which, it wasn't a done thing. It wasn't a well-trodden path. And I was the first person from my family to go to university. Wow. So it was one of those things where it was a hugely aspirational step, but it was that idea of being able to represent people, being able to have the intellectual challenge of the law, the different nuances which are involved there. It was something which very quickly was quite an attractive proposition.
And what was your first paying job?
My first paying job was probably hiring out bicycles at a stately home or just outside Manchester. There is a real value in encountering as many people as you can.
Right.
I think those people who do get jobs when they're younger in retail, public-facing roles, I think bar work, that sort of thing. I genuinely think it's a hugely important thing to have to basically go on for later on, because if you get into management leadership, if you can't deal with people, then what are you doing there?
Absolutely. And when did you think that banking actually and finance in combo with your law was the right way to go?
That was quite a bit later on.
Right.
It wasn't the first thing. I mean, when I was coming from the state where I lived, there were a number of my peer group who were basically running into trouble with the police at a very young age. So the natural progression was criminal law. So therefore, that was the sort of, right, well, I can see myself getting there. And then I was fortunate. I mean, I sort of went off. Last year at university, did World Debating Championships, went to Inner Temple, one of the Inns of Court, to qualify as a barrister. Wow. And it was even after that, I completed my pupillage at one of the top criminal sets, One Crown Office Row. And, it was a really, really good time. I loved it. But it was unfunded and I ran out of money. I mean, simply put, I couldn't afford to stay at the bar because the money wouldn't come in time. Wow. So a friend of mine landed me a role as a paralegal with a sort of, a decent medium-sized city firm. And basically I went into their banking finance team. And that was almost like a starting point of, okay, so there's this huge
world exists.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to go back actually for a minute to you becoming a barrister, looking at your training, thinking about, your background, where you're coming from, your friends. What differentiated you as a person to be on that side of the law and not the other?
One of the big problems that there's been in the past with law, I think it's getting better, but, I'm in effect, I am a middle-class white male. And essentially there's loads of middle-class white males, and that's something which has to change. I'm glad to see. I at Credit Suisse, I worked with some incredible female bosses, and they were amazing. I was so fortunate. But when I went in, especially when I was doing the bar finals, they were very, very different from me.
Right.
A lot of Red Brick University, Oxbridge, as well. Very well moneyed, very well able to sort of survive the financial rigours of the bar vocational course.
Yeah.
And I went in there with a massive bank loan from NatWest, as you do. And I really was struggling. I mean, financially, it was a real stretch. But I think, if anything, it made me double down on what I was, the way I was approaching it. So I have an absolutely completely irrational love of the glorious red footballing machine that is Crewe Alexandra, a small lower league football side.
Shout out.
Yeah, it is. It was one of those things where I remember going into the lecture theatre for the bar vocational course lectures.
Yeah.
And there were lots of people there with barbers and, sort of very sort of, the sort of the labels and signifiers of the upper middle classes and above.
Right.
And I went in with my Crewe Alex replica shirt on, which I felt as though in a way I had to do. I had to turn round and go, I am not you. I'm not going to be you, I think.
Great.
So therefore I'm going to be me.
And you then went on lecturing.
Yes.
Actually, before you joined the banking and finance industry. How is that transition for you from being a lecturer, teaching, spending time with young people, to going into the corporate environment, which is a very different, fast-paced, very different reality? How did you manage that transition?
It was genuinely a very, very lovely bunch of people, and it was a real honour to be able to be entrusted with people's futures. The thing is that I think at that stage I started to realise that, first and foremost, the idea of developing people is a prerequisite. If you don't want to develop people, don't manage people, because you might as well just be a subject matter expert and just do what you enjoy doing in terms of the technical expertise.
Right.
But if you like people, you've got to learn how to work with them and basically how to develop. And the transition actually wasn't as hard, because I went from one set of very lovely people who were young and very much the beginning of their careers, to go to the building society I went to, which West Bromwich Building Society, where there were so many lifers there. They literally went in at 18, 19, 20 and that were there 30, 40 years.
Wow.
And they were so knowledgeable. They were very much of the area. And I think that they had immense pride in the West Brom. And it was one of those things, to work with that, it's not hard to transition into that space. Learning stuff is just something you do. There's always going to be new stuff to learn, and that's a challenge throughout your career. But the actual transition was relatively straightforward for me, I think.
And do you remember your first day at Credit Suisse?
Oh, yeah, very much so. I remember sort of a feeling of almost abject terror. It was that sort of, West Brom was doing some really interesting stuff, commercial mortgage-backed securitisations, they were opening second charge lending businesses, that sort of thing. And I remember thinking, I'm going to go to Credit Suisse and it's going to be so much bigger, it's it's 100 times bigger than West Brom. It's not millions, it's billions, it's all that sort of stuff. I actually had a plan that I thought, if it doesn't work after a week, a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, I had exit routes worked out.
Right. What were they?
If it had been the first week, month, 3 months, I literally would have gone back. And I think that's one of those things which basically, it helped. It was easier to sort of make that sort of options analysis as in, okay, well, if it doesn't work, I can do this. But as it worked out, within literally, 3-4 weeks, I just thought, well, this is almost, this is just a bit like West Brom, but bigger.
Right.
There's the same sort of issues about people, systems. People make mistakes, and it's how you deal with them. People are not trying to make mistakes, they make mistakes, and it's something which is a value neutral thing. The trick is, how do you deal with it, and how do you make sure you try and stop it from happening again? And so it wasn't I think that, if you take that macro view, they're not radically dissimilar.
Let's talk about Credit Suisse. And we both met at Credit Suisse. Such a
Yes.
great peak of my career, probably then, at the time. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I just wanted to unpack to start with, because I know my listeners will be interested, especially those who are just starting the career of banking and finance. Is this a lucrative career, would you say? Is there something financially there for young people?
There can be. But I think there's an element of that. I always think it's not about how much you earn, it's about how much your lifestyle costs.
Ah, that's a very good way of looking at it.
I mean, I think there's an element of if you want to go and buy Porsches and, stay at the Ritz every 5 minutes and Michelin star dining every other weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have to go and find somewhere which pays a lot. But if it pays a lot, there is a Faustian pact. You will sell your soul to the business.
That's the thing. But also, I know definitely for you, for us, it's not really money's obviously we want to be compensated proportionally to the effort you put in. So that's one side of it. But the people, the exposure, the networking, that's a very different aspect of your work.
Yes.
What's it like to manage 18,000 people?
Is
it the same like managing 500?
So I did a lot of work with public speaking. So in Poland, there was a Poland Women's Network, and I worked on, we did a course every year where we talked to them about how you speak in public, different audiences, what's the difference between speaking to board of directors versus a team meeting versus a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand. And to a certain degree, once you get above a certain number, it just merges. The order of magnitude just becomes relatively irrelevant. So I think once you get above 200, if you speak to more than 200 people, then basically you're not really counting the next 10 or 50 or 100. You're just going, okay, it's a room full of people.
Did you have to grind to get to where you were? Did you have to work your 40-hour days?
I did do, if you want to talk about grind, in one respect you could turn around and say, okay, I was living in Ireland, I was flying to Poland every week and back, I was often away. I go to India, Singapore, Hong Kong to see stakeholders there, which was a 2-week business trip. And whilst I was there, I would normally be picking up things, if not in the office, in the flat from 7:30 in the morning, and I'd normally be there till 7:30 at night, and maybe picking up stuff a bit later afterwards as well. But the thing is, and you were just talking about values and people, the thing is that if you actually enjoy what you do, you don't notice.
Right. I mean, you made a tremendous difference on all of our careers when you came to Poland. And I was at the time managing a small team, which grew exponentially. I think, within months from 5 of us, it was like 200 of us. It was just growing at a speed of light. And when you showed up, and that was my gig in Poland from, CS London, when you showed up, it was like a breath of fresh air. Someone who understands what's going on here, who knows you're the first person who even started talking about leadership and how we manage our teams and put some structure in place. How did you know where to start when you come to an environment that is not your culture, not your language? You don't understand really probably most of the time when people are speaking what they're talking about. Where do you even start?
I think it's about what culture you want to set. And therefore, your culture is set by the way that you behave as a leader.
Yeah.
I think it's also about clarity of message. I was always very concerned about, to your point, virtually everyone in Wrocław and in Warsaw and over in Pune and Mumbai as well in India, their levels of English were very, very good. I had people come up saying, I'm so sorry, my English isn't very good. It's better than mine. I'm from the northwest of England. I can barely string a few words together. I'm a terrible thief of, sayings and sort of things which basically I think, oh, that's quite good. That's a good message. It's far cleverer than I could do. And there was one which ended up on the whiteboard in my office in Wrocław, which was leave no stone unturned in the quest to make those around you as good as they could be. And basically that was the one which I thought, that's the one I need to work with here. And I think it was also a certain degree of a deal being done with the people who are working with me, if your leader is acting in good faith, then you believe in them and you're more likely to work with them. Secondly, people don't really, as a rule of thumb, want to do a bad job.
No.
They want to be able to walk away at the end of the day and go, you know what, that was actually worth something.
Yeah.
And the third thing is actually to reduce the amount of stuff. And I'm sorry, this is going back to the grind question. There's a difference between grind and hustle. Grind is basically this idea of directionless, pointless work. It's just basically, I'm going to do the same thing for 15 hours a day. Whereas hustle is probably less work, but with a very clear outcome that you're looking for.
Yeah, we loved it and we all felt it, and it really made a big difference. Within that environment of flying every other week, you know, not seeing your family, not being able to probably attend some of the family, you know, events or your friends' events, etc., etc. Have you ever had a moment when you thought, that's it, I'm done?
It got to a stage where it was so rewarding, you know, the alignment of, you know, ambition, career, values, all of that. The reward of seeing people. I mean, we
were flying.
Yeah.
We're getting best reviews. You know, people are loving us in London. Yeah, you were just.
But the thing was, it was you guys. It was you guys. It wasn't me. I think that there was a point where I didn't realise how much it was taking out of me by doing that commuting. And I think there was a point when I got 3 years in, and I just went.
My God.
I suddenly realised I was flying on average every 3.5 days. And I think the thing is, it's incredibly rewarding. You feel a huge sense of privilege that you're entrusted with so many people. But it's horrendously uncertain in the sense of that I always doubted myself as to my judgments. There was an element of, I wanted to make sure that on one side I didn't fall into the trap of everyone was only as good as their last piece of work.
Right.
You wanted to see that, you know, everyone can make a mistake. It doesn't mean you throw them out the door the first time they make a mistake. But at the same time, I didn't want to end up with just a bunch of friends who direct reports as friends is a very bad path to go.
I agree. Yeah. I remember, you know, you were the only person, and I was very fortunate in my career, had amazing bosses throughout, but you were definitely the one person whose door will always be open. There was a whiteboard with some weird quotes, and people would be walking around thinking, my goodness, I've had that, you know, my captain moment with you. You were the, honestly, you know, the leader that this place needed. What are the qualities of a good leader? Because you talked a little bit about culture. We talked here about, you know, lots of people having faith and trusting you that you're going to take us in the right direction. So there's two parts to the question, I suppose. Firstly, what if the direction that you're being told we're taking is completely in disagreement with your values? Yeah. What happens then?
You have to take a chance to voice an objection. I think you have to turn around and basically say, look, is this the right thing, truly the right thing for the business? There does come a stage where if it's not illegal, if it's illegal, that's a whole different
discussion. That's a different podcast.
That's definitely one. That's an escalation right there. But I think the thing is that if there is a strategic decision which is made by the institution that you work for, there does come a stage of you have to implement it as best as you can. Yeah. I remember one of my good friends who I literally would stand next to at the football. He was an accountant, a financial director, and he came to the football one Saturday afternoon and said, "Oh, we've had to fire 20 people this week. You know, let 20 people go because of corporate restructuring." And I said, "Oh, geez, man, that must have been pretty bad for you. You couldn't have enjoyed that." And he said, "Well, I actually said, I'm glad I did it." He said, "Because I knew if I did it, I would do everything to try and do it right, to try and make sure that the people who left the organisation understood why, and understood that it wasn't really about them. It was about the way that the bank leadership wanted to go." And I always felt as though that was a very mature and pragmatic approach to doing things which you may not always agree with. If there's a decision which is made by your organisation and you really can't get with it, you got to go.
You got to go. Yeah.
You got to go, because ultimately you just end up hating yourself.
I agree. I want to go back to understanding working under pressure a little bit, because you must have mastered the ability to internalize it, deal with it. We're talking about a very busy, dynamic investment banking environment. Lots of emails, lots of people with different issues, people crying in your office sometimes. Yeah, I remember that. People shouting on the phone, lots of emails, sometimes emails just with question marks showing up in our inboxes. I remember that as well. Talking about escalations. How do you, and I remember you, Simon, always super calm, smiling, like everything is under control. What's your toolbox? How do you do that?
Just on the smiling point.
Yeah.
Just before, I've got to come back to this because, welcome to the escalation confessional aspect.
That's right. I love that.
I think I got it wrong with the smiling.
That is so interesting.
Because
Why?
I think what happens is that if you smile, if you are funny, what happens is that I think people tend to turn around and think that you're not serious about what you're doing.
Right.
There's a huge difference about being serious about what you're doing and being authentic and human with the people you're working with. I think that when it comes to the pressure aspect, I think there's a number of points. The first thing is normally, anything to do with pressure is normally temporary. Sustained pressure, again, is a warning sign about the direction of the institution, the organisation. The starting point is very simple. If you're going to play in the higher leagues, as they say, then the pressure does increase, and you need to be aware of that and understand it's perfectly normal to feel under pressure. What's not normal, what's abnormal, and what's bad is the idea of that you just live for the pressure.
That's right.
And there's so many people, you would have seen them, I've seen them, who just went after pressure, went after stress as though it was the next hit. There are people who definitely sought stress, created stress to make them look important.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that, again, maybe I wasn't politic enough. Maybe I should have created more stress and, oh my God, it's all going wrong. But I think if I'd done that, then there's a point whereby that you can't put boundaries around it. If you say the situation is stressed, then it just explodes out. It's like a fragmentation grenade. You don't know where the impact of that's going to end up.
And I think you were just brilliant at creating actually the right kind of pressure that doesn't burst the pipes, but creates diamonds. And a lot of us, and I'm still in touch with a lot of people from CS, that was probably that part of my career path which created the most beautiful relationships and friendships for a number of years, because we're talking 15, 16 years ago now. So that is just a testament to it's the people that create the organization, it's the culture. But I wanted to actually ask you, I know before we wrap up, but I know a lot of my listeners will be interested, those who aspire to be the future general counsels of global organizations, investment banks, etc. Talk us for a typical day of a GC.
The starting point for me was, what's going to kill us today? What could kill us this week? What could kill us this month? What could kill us this year?
I love it.
So that was the first thing. Work through what are the imminent threats. I was always big on having a forward-facing radar. That's important.
Love it.
Second thing.
No surprises then.
No, I mean, put it this way. I'd rather turn round. The no surprises point actually ties into the second thing, which was I was a big fan of MBWA, Management by Walking Around.
Yeah.
I talked too much.
I loved it.
So walking around, and I think authenticity is the big thing.
100%.
I always remember the first town hall in Wrocław. I'm walking in, I tried to speak in Polish, butcher it terribly. Still can't speak Polish very well at all.
No, you're pretty good. You're pretty good.
I went through and it was getting to a stage and I know when I'm public speaking how it's going. I remember turning round and thinking, this isn't going great. And then I turned around and said, I said, so some personal details about me. I'm married. I've got 2 children. I follow a lower league football club, Crew Alexandria. It's League 2 in England. And I love my metal. Now, in Poland,
remember that.
Yeah, in Poland, there's a lot of metal fans.
Yes.
So basically, especially at Credit Suisse at the time, and I just heard this dull roar from the back of the room, like, yeah, and it was like, okay, this is it.
You're in at that point, absolutely
But
approved.
I think that authenticity. The reason why it's important is because if you want no surprises, you have to be approachable. If people are terrified about coming to see you, you have a massive, massive problem. You can deal with problems you know about as part of the GC head of legal role. The ability to make yourself available for people so that they can talk to you is hugely important. And so you've got the first thing, what's going to kill us. Second thing is, management by walking around, communication with staff.
Love it.
And the third thing is essentially then making sure that the staff that are working with you are developing.
Yeah.
Because
Huge point. So important.
The threats of today aren't the threats of tomorrow.
Yeah.
You don't need to fall over a hurdle to learn how to jump. You know, you don't have to do it yourself. If someone can show you can get over the hurdle, great. Why do you need to fall over? That was the bit I was looking for. I was looking for people who took an active interest in, well, what went wrong and what can we do to stop it?
But you are very good at giving us the space to, find out what that is. And not everyone has that luck. And, it's interesting that you're talking about luck in the context of career. I like the saying that luck is really preparation meeting opportunity. You're always there to send the right email, open the right doors, push us to the next level to create these diamonds. But it is really down to your authenticity, working on our development and pushing the organization in the right direction. I just wanted to ask, because, we're talking about you as our leader, but it's equally as important as I'm thinking about it today that you had leaders and you had bosses.
Yes, I had a number of bosses who were amazing.
Great.
And a number of people who weren't my bosses, but were my internal clients as such, who were amazing as well. And so that helps a lot. But I also had some, outside of Credit Suisse, I had some awful bosses, terrible bosses, god-awful bosses who shouldn't have been in charge of managing a takeaway order.
So what is the list of don'ts? What is the list of oh my God,
don't
these
let people carry on down don't let people drive at a wall at 60 miles an hour.
That's a good tip.
I think that's the big thing. Don't let people carry on down paths which are bad paths.
Is it the same also as don't let them pigeonhole you? Because we talk to young people who are in the industry at the moment and they come to us saying, oh, look, Edith, I really want to learn how to negotiate this new agreement, the GIMSLAs or, prime brokerage. But they put me in the ISDA department and I don't really care much about this particular OTC trading agreement, but I really want to learn more. But how do we have these conversations? How do you get outside of the box?
The starting point is, I think, if you're on the inside of an organisation, it's easier to move than trying to get in from the outside.
That's true, yeah.
Second thing, you have to find the connecting parts between what you're doing now and where you want to get to. Now, that takes thought. This is the difference between grind and hustle. Grind is working away 20 hours a day, just doing what the area that you don't want to do, but thinking, I'm going to do this, and one day someone magically will go, well, Simon, you're a star, why don't you come and work in the prime brokerage department, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's not that. That's grind. Hustle is basically doing the job that you have to do, but working out what you can do around the outside, which then makes the links into the area you want to go to. So if you're doing derivative documentation and you want to go to prime brokerage, just for the sake of argument, you need to find out, right, who are the contacts? How do I find out about this stuff? Try and pick up some of the documentation, make those connections. And it's not going to happen overnight. But I think that the idea of trying to hustle, trying to make the connections to work towards a bigger purpose is what you should do rather than grind on. If you know the business, you stand the best chance of actually making that move. Know how the people work, how the systems work, how the business works. And most importantly, what makes money.
That's it. What I wanted to ask you is whether you think the industry, how in your view it's changed over the years, because you've been observing it from the investment banking side at a very high, executive level. Do we have a problem in the industry? Do we have a problem, around culture? harassment, bullying. Do we have a problem? Has it changed? Do you see this, actually heading in the right direction? Or do we need to have a little bit more consciousness and awareness around what this industry is really about?
I think it's not, the journey's not done yet. It never will be.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think that what's likely to happen is that there will be more opportunities for a more diverse range of backgrounds to come into banking and finance. Could it be quicker? Probably. Do I think that there are people in banking and finance who are part of the problem? Absolutely. But there are a lot of people who are also part of the solution. I think that it's not just banking and finance. Go to any big,
Such a good point.
any area. The quality of people is hugely important. The problem that banking and finance has is that there's a lot of short-term aims which are inconsistent with good people. And that's the bit which basically is very, very difficult. If you're a pension fund, you want returns on your investments. That means those who are doing the investing may feel that they need to cut corners to deliver those returns.
That's right.
And it's grit, because basically I don't know, unless you've got a very different take on the way the sort of the economic systems work, I don't know how we get around that. All you can do is, is it Voltaire in Candide turns around and talks about the idea of looking after your own garden.
Yeah.
You can only look after the space that you're in and try and do your best there. And if it's really that bad, if that part of the banking and finance world is not for you, get out.
Yeah, of course.
Life's too short.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best advice. Yeah, absolutely. 3 adjectives that describe banking and finance in reality that you would not have think of when you actually joined. So 3 things that comes to mind.
It's a bit of a glib one. Challenging is the first one.
Good.
Challenging is definitely, but in a good way as well, not just a bad one. Fun.
Great. Fun
It
is
is
always
actually
good.
fun.
It's
It's fun. It's the the sort of the ability to go, wow, that was amazing what we've just done there. And for me, the last one's a bit of a strange one. Melancholic.
I love that.
It's basically the idea of that. I look back over it and think, after what happened with Credit Suisse, a lot of the Credit Suisse people turned round. One of the things with all the stories about Credit Suisse and the takeover and everything else, I think people felt that there was lots wrong with Credit Suisse. What people don't realise is 99.999% of the people in Credit Suisse were very good people.
I couldn't agree more.
And they weren't looking to crash this, and they didn't do anything really wrong. What happened was there was a loss of shareholder confidence in the direction that the management, the exec board, supervisory board took. And I think that's the bit which makes me feel melancholic about what happened with my experience of being with Credit Suisse.
Of course.
I think that when I speak to other people, they've gone off to different banks and it's different.
Yes.
In some respects, it's better, and they don't regret having left Credit Suisse, but they do miss Credit Suisse.
I can relate.
I'd say, it's a bit of a strange word maybe to finish that 3 words, but it is actually, I think, I'm not alone in feeling that way.
But you totally, and it's not something that you would have thought you would be feeling today, having, been through the journey. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. Obviously, being an escalation podcast about escalations, tell me, what was the most memorable one? And, the industry uses and abuses the word, let's escalate this, let's find a solution. And they go all the way to the top. So you being at that top probably dealt with a number of different escalations.
But I had somebody who was in a different part of it wasn't in general counsel or compliance, and came up to me and they were struggling. They were really struggling. They felt as though their line manager was a bit of an ogre, a bit of a terror to be managed by.
Right.
The person above that was somewhat blindsided to the way that manager operated. I think the person in charge had this manager as a bit of a favourite, maybe. And this person came into my office and just went floods of tears. I can't cope. I feel like I'm. And this was a person who was very, very able.
Wow.
And this is the sort of person you're thinking, if this person leaves the organisation, we have a
We're in
problem with the
trouble.
organisation.
Okay.
And so basically I turned round and the first thing was just let them talk, let them get this out first.
Right.
I didn't make any promises about who I would talk to. So in other words, I said, look, because this is affecting you, very personally, I'm not saying that I won't go to HR, because there's an issue about we have a duty of care to you as an employee. And we don't want to be in a position whereby we're driving you to this.
Yeah.
But my first reaction was, okay, the line in front of her isn't going to provide the answer.
Yeah.
It's not going to be by going this way. It's going to be by going that way. It's a circular route, but back around the top of the organisation. And I was very fortunate. One of the things I've been very fortunate about in my career is that I think the people who've been the CEOs, the country heads, those sort of people, have tended to listen. I think I'm quite a good consigliere, sort of quite a good voice in the ear going, you sure you want to do that? I went to the country head and just said, look, this is what I perceive is going on. I could be wrong. That was a big thing. I could be wrong. I've only heard one side of the story. But I think that this person is about to go. They're going to walk away and say, the organisation is rubbish and don't go work there. But they're also going to leave a hole we're not going to fill for 6 months, and we're going to fall over because of it. And I think that escalation, the person didn't leave. They went off and had a very nice career, did years and years and years. I don't think they think about it that much. If they do, great. If they don't, that's fine too. The thing which I felt at the time was we dodged a bullet.
Right.
Escalations, I think sometimes another way of putting it is they're ways of dodging bullets. And so therefore, what do you want to be? Do you want to be shot, or do you want to dodge the bullet? And if you want to dodge the bullet, then you escalate. Not easy. You need some bravery to do it. If you're dealing with an escalation, though, that's a different set of skills maybe which are required.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. One final question. What's next for Simon Welch?
It's interesting. I mean, I'm into my 50s now, and there still needs to be sort of like my intellectual curiosity has not been sated yet, so therefore I need to keep working away with that. I do wonder a little bit about, I've left Credit Suisse now, and I wonder a little bit about whether I will end up working again for another big bank or whatever.
Would you like that?
I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. I think there are times when I sit there and think it would be really nice to do. There's other times, though, where I've seen, and I'm not talking within Credit Suisse specifically, I'm talking about other institutions, where I've seen people who are very high up, who are tremendously mediocre. And I sort of sat there and went,
I agree, absolutely.
Is it better to be in that organisation knowing that they're, I think the legal term is, trading under false pretences? I'm involved with the local university to me where I live in Ireland, and basically that'll be interesting and fun. There's a role I'm going to take up with a not-for-profit around sustainability, which I think is genuinely very interesting. There's lots of things there. But I think the next role is more likely to be a GC head of legal role rather than a full-out management role, which in some respects is a bit of a shame, because the management side is something which, is the GC head of legal side is always fascinating, and there's interesting challenges. Management is a different thing altogether. Absolutely. And it's one of those things where, as I said, the Poland India experience was just unbelievable. And I think that you don't really normally get more than one of those in a career. And I don't think I'm going to get another one of those. If something like that came up, that would be very hard to turn down. But I think it's going to be more.
That's a hint for everyone listening.
Well, it's one of those things whereby it's very interesting in the sense of that I don't think people necessarily know what they need until they've got it in place, and then they realise, geez, we needed that all along. And that's the problem is that if you don't have the vision to see what you need, then why would you be searching for it, type thing. So no, we'll have to wait and see. I don't think
I'll be watching that space.
I don't think I'm going to be sort of delivering papers or anything in the near future, or going back to doing a milk round. But whatever I do, it's going to be intellectually stimulating, and it's going to be something which I know I'll give my full energy to, because basically if I'm not doing that, I'm just going to get a bit edgy there.
You are a tremendous leader, an exceptional person, and thank you for making my time at Credit Suisse so fun and exciting. And I'm really, really honored that I had a pleasure of working with you.
My pleasure.
So I tend to refer to you in my head as the giant of a man and a titan of the industry. and with that, hopefully, nice phrase. Thank you for being here today, and we definitely need to talk again. So to be continued.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.